They call it the voiceover business because, well, you're running a business. When you plug in your microphone, as it were, in this industry, you're not just making a decision to get in the booth and record. You're also making a decision to pursue entrepreneurship, to become a small business owner, to be a VOpreneur. My guest today is a serial entrepreneur who has more than a few business lessons to teach us all, I am sure. You may have seen her behind the scenes at VO Atlanta, helping keep things running smoothly and organized. Or you might have heard her voicing projects for People's Health, United Healthcare, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, or CVS. Welcome to the show, Jessica Mathison.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
So we were talking very briefly before we started that you're pretty much a world traveler now. And so, it's very
Right.
fortunate that I was even able to catch you at home. But I was thinking, when you and I first connected a few years ago, I believe you were living the RV life.
Yes, I did that for a minute and I thought, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna travel everywhere and I'm gonna be able to go where I want to go and work where I want to work. And then I found that I was at the same RV park in the local area. And it was a great RV park. It was beautiful. It was right by a golf course, and that was really loud. There was landscaping at 6 a.m. every single day, and they could do it from 6 a.m. until noon. The RV got hit with golf balls regularly. Then I had to patch it up, and it was super fun. And then I was like, I don't know, having to turn off the AC in the RV so that the sound didn't come through the mic when it's 100 degrees outside, and it's that was a lot.
Not quite as glamorous of a life as you initially anticipated or expected.
No, not even a little bit. I mean, it was cool, but I wish I would have been able to travel more, but I just found that it was I don't know, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. It's because I didn't want to go off the grid and all of those things that make
Right.
RVing a lot less expensive. I needed to be on the grid. I needed to be at RV parks and things like that. And I was just like, it's I could go to a hotel and have my creature comforts for cheaper than I can do this.
At the end of the day, I mean, our needs are pretty basic, right? We need a quiet space and we need internet.
Yes.
But can you find those things in an RV in certain instances? 100%. Are there some voice actors who are living that life? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it something that I have thought about, like, maybe someday in an early retirement type of thing or something like that? Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
It never would have occurred to me that I was living next to a golf course and golf balls would be pinging off of my RV throughout the day. But you must have been right on the golf course, or it was a golf course with some very mediocre golfers.
Yes, both were true. Yeah, it was on the very first hole too. So it's like the very first, like, oh, okay, I'll get into my groove. Those were all the golfers that bing, and then
still trying to wake up. Haven't that coffee hasn't quite sunk in yet, and so their aim is still a little bit off.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but now then, you said I could take my creature comforts of my hotel. It's almost like you have gone in that opposite direction from the RV now, because it's like I was impressed that I was able to catch you at home to even record this interview, because it feels like you spend the vast majority of your existence traveling around the world. So talk about a little bit about how life has changed from the RV to the hotel to the globetrotting, and are you taking a tri booth with you, or how does that work?
Yeah. So, everything has kind of changed a lot. And I have Anna and JMC to thank for that. I've had the opportunity to work with them on VO Atlanta and their Euro retreats. And then there's just been other things too that I've been able to help with. I went last year to Uncle Roy's barbecue because, that's a bucket list item. You must go at least once. Right. And then we kind of reached out to him because we're like, well, do you have a place where we could like put something together? Because like we're coming in from out of state. I don't think we can like bring a dish, but do you need some help? And then we found ourselves gravitating, Ron and I found ourselves gravitating to like where the food table was, to make sure that things kind of made sense for running through the buffet line and all that, which is also a great place to meet everybody because everybody comes through the food line. And then Ron ended up on the grill, and And Ron and Roy and Donna were like, yeah, would you come back next year? So now I guess we're gonna help with Uncle Roy's barbecue every year.
I am so deep in it with Uncle Roy right now. It's a wonder he still talks to me, because everybody will remember in the fall of 2019, we were live streaming. I had picked him up at the airport and we were live streaming in the car, and we announced, we were going to do Brisket 2020. Well, we all know what happened in 2020. And so that ended up not happening. Brisket 2020 didn't happen. Well, then travel restrictions in Canada remained for a couple of years. It was really difficult to get across the border. And so then, that put it off. Brisket 2020 became 21, then it became 22, and that wasn't happening. And then Kaylee came along, and then I couldn't travel. And now we've got Kinsley we had in April, and now I'm like, I can't go again because my mother-in-law can't come. And if I leave my wife for an extended period at this point, she might not be here when I come home. So you're right. It is absolutely a bucket list item. And one of these days I will get that crossed off of my list. So the reason I wanted to have you on is because of the whole serial entrepreneur thing. And I think that the business side of the business is something that doesn't always get talked about enough, which is, why this podcast exists and why I always try to talk about those sorts of things. There's no shortage of resources where you can go to learn about demos and coaching and setting up your home studio and all of that sort of stuff. But we don't always talk about some of the business lessons.
Yeah.
So let's start with, you've owned multiple businesses over the years. You describe yourself as a serial entrepreneur. What was the first, and how did you get started in it?
Well, I have to say, you jokingly called me a serial entrepreneur, and I just was like, yes, that's it. And so now I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. That works. So
It's a good title.
And I think it was when I joined your mastermind group, and you're like, I bet you'll have a business before like the first month or something. And I was like, so about that. But yeah, my first entrepreneurial endeavor was event planning. I had started out being sort of, the soccer mom that helped organize like the team snacks or the end of the year, end of the season awards and pizza, or the classroom stuff. I'd be that person as much as I could. I worked for a bank that provided 40 hours a year of volunteer time paid. So they liked you to go in and help. And so I helped in the schools when I could. And then birthday parties, people's weddings, just all sorts of things. People would be like, wow, you're really good at this. Would you help me do that? And then I was like, I think I have something here. I think I'm going to start charging for that. So I kind of made that like a side business while I was still working for the bank. And then I had this plan that I was going to go up the corporate ladder and work for the bank until I retired. And then it turned out that everything that I wanted to do was actually moved out of the area that we were in and moved up to a different area. And we wanted to raise the kids where we were at. So we didn't want to move. So I just kind of had to do what I could at the bank. And then when I got to a point where I couldn't really grow anymore, and it just was like, okay, well, it's probably time for me to move on. So I decided to go and buy an old fishing lodge that was a great deal. It was it was a failed business that it was this great old building, historical building called the Idlewild Lodge in Idlewild Park, Oregon. And I thought, okay, well, if I want to be an event planner, I could take the risk of having a home and having a business off site. Okay. And then I'd have two sets of bills and all that, or I could potentially live and work in the same building. And if I had this event space, this lodging, all of these things kind of built in, then people are maybe more likely to use your event planning services. So ended up with an old fishing lodge that
you are not risk averse, or at least you weren't anyway, obviously at that point in your life, because it sounds like you're like taking some chances.
I did. It's kind of surprising too, because I was kind of risk averse, except for I just talked myself into it being maybe, okay, well, I need a home to live in. I had
Sure.
recently divorced. And so I was like, okay, well, I need a place to live. And why not the amount that I was able to buy this place for, because it was in disrepair and it was a failed business, was as much as I would buy a house for. And my mortgage was similar to rent in the area. So I was like,
So the
hmm,
math makes sense.
yeah,
The opportunity's there. You've got
yep,
that entrepreneurial mindset. See, I love that. I love the way that you look at that, because it's not how most people would look at it, but that's the business mind going all
yeah.
out. So what was the end result of that then?
Oh my God, it went through so many changes. Like Malik Berger has the art of the pivot in VO, and
Yep.
we actually connected at VO Atlanta when I walked up, and I'm like, oh my God, you have the art of the pivot in VO, and I have the art of the pivot in business, because that's all I've had to do. I had to learn to pivot, 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 because I had an idea of what I was going to do with this business. It was going to be a bed and breakfast, and we were going to have breakfast, and then send people on their way. It's 4 rooms, clean some rooms, either people come
Yep.
back or new people check in. We've got the whole day. It's going to be great. And it was
Let me guess, that's
the,
not quite how the fairy tale ended.
not so much. No, it was more like the first year, no time off whatsoever, 20-hour work days, fall
Yep.
into bed, get a few hours of rest, maybe, and then wake up and take the longest commute ever downstairs to the part that was the commercial business.
Okay.
And then the like I said, is a failed business. And so it had actually been through multiple owners. And the name was historical because it's a building that's been, actually it predates its county history. Like you
Oh
look at the
wow.
records at the county and it says it was built in 1947. But the only part that was built in 1947 was an addition. Everything else is
Everything
not
else was in.
documented. So
Oh
there's
wow.
tons and tons of history,
Okay.
and wanted to keep that. But that name was also quite tarnished by previous owners.
Sure. Yep.
And so we were like, okay. We actually had a neighbor walk in and go, you're going to fail, right? And I was like, oh, don't
Thanks
you
for the vote of
dare tell me that.
confidence.
What a bet. You
Yeah,
know, Best motivator. Tell me I can't do something. Go
it's
ahead.
true. It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So that was the first one, but the one that I'm sure we could talk about multiple, but the one that I think is most interesting is you got to talk about how you monetized rage and destruction.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So that's part of that pivot, right? So the lodging didn't end up having the occupancy
Okay.
that it needed to, and then we added a restaurant piece by demand. People wanted a restaurant because there wasn't a lot available out there that they liked. So
Okay.
we did that, and that evolved, and that still was a little bit slow. We did the food truck thing, and then the food truck was in a wreck, and then insurance didn't give us enough money to actually buy a new food truck that made sense with ROI. They're like,
Right?
here's a few grand. Good luck. And we were like, yeah, so we're out of this business. This makes no sense. And then we had at that point shut down the lodging. We tried monthly rentals in the rooms, didn't really care for the calendar, but people that we got, so we were like just using them as storage rooms. And
Okay.
then we ended up turning those rooms into escape rooms. Our friend had seen an escape room and was like, I hate to tell you how to run your business, but have you ever thought about doing this? And we're like, oh, you are so brilliant. What a great idea.
I
Ron
love
is a
it.
huge adventure gamer. He loves, the little mysteries and all that stuff. We have yet to this day to go to an escape room, to be honest. But we ran one for
You
a few
ran one, but
years.
you never went to one. Little
Yes.
market research there, maybe you.
Yeah, it was cool though. It was more low tech than other ones, but people really enjoyed it. And then we had a game room that was next to this, that we had taken this big event space and we had split it into 2 so that we had a small event space and then we had a game room that was
Okay.
pool tables and ping pong and stuff, and it just wasn't getting utilized.
Okay.
And so then we happened to hear like a news something, whether it was radio or on TV, I'm not sure which, but about a woman in Texas who created a rage room, because she was actually a victim of domestic violence and had pent up rage from what she had gone through. And so she found that even though she went through therapy and all of this stuff, the best release that she had was to just break stuff. And so we were
Makes
like,
sense.
how many people put their fist through a wall, or they, break a dish, or they slam the door too hard and it breaks, or whatever, because there's just so much pent up frustration and it's got to go somewhere.
Which might be a statement towards a greater societal challenge, but at the same time, you recognized a problem and you're creating a solution, and there is
Yeah.
the entrepreneur.
Yep. And so we were like, okay, that could be cool. That doesn't exist in this county. Much like there was one in the entire state of Oregon, and it was over an hour away to get to it, and people were driving to it
Yep.
to go do it. And so we were like, this sounds like we could use this space. We'll just cover the window with this tonneau cover that was sitting by our shed doing nothing. So cover the window so the window doesn't get broken. Let's go ahead and split that room in half so that we have a place where they can go. We'll put plexiglass so that other people can watch them. And then we'll make like a little store where they can have so we went to the vineyards and said, well, the vineyards had recently had trouble with their glass. The recycling place here stopped taking the glass because they had nobody to buy it from them. So they stopped recycling glass in our area a few years ago. And so there was one vineyard in particular that had a barn full of wine bottles that they just could not bring themselves to get rid of because it seemed wrong not to recycle them.
Sure.
And it cost them too much to just have them rewashed and reused. That was actually more expensive than buying new bottles. And so we said, well, we'll take them off your hands and then people can break them. And she was like, heck yes. And when she came, she was not kidding about having a barn. It was like a truck that was overloaded with cases of wine bottles and a trailer. And so we were like, yep, we're set. It took up a storage room. And then we were like, okay, well, what else? And so we went to the secondhand store for the mission that supports the mission.
Okay.
And they are constantly getting broken electronics. Like they look fine, but they don't work. Or kids' toys that are the ones that they just can't really sell it because it's a little broken or something like that. Or they would get dishes that they're like, these are just, we can't really do anything with these. Lamps, like just anything. And they had to pay the dump to take it. And so we were like, how about if we just come by every week and we'll grab your stuff that we'll pick through it, what we can get to put in this room.
Yep.
And then you don't have to pay for that. And they're like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I love it. Let's do it. So we did that, and people drove out. We were about 20 minutes out of town, and people drove out because the drive is beautiful, and they would come in and they would break stuff. Or we had a BYOB, bring your own breakables, if you wanted to. And we had some people who went through bad breakups and had some things they wanted to get rid of, and they thought smashing it would be great.
So you started offering therapy, is basically, you didn't have to sit down and talk to anyone, but you were basically offering therapy.
We had one person that, it was a little frightening, that was like, can you record this? And she's like, rah, 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 like yelling at the ex, and like, she's like, I'm going to send it to him. And I'm like, that's not strange at all. Okay. So, but yeah, we, the bring your own was really cool for that. Or we had people want to do gender reveals in a different way. So they would bring something in that would have like pink or blue powder, and break something open and it would reveal it and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
I think my favorite part of this, other than that's just a brilliant concept, is literally the evolution of how you went from the original idea, and like you literally did pivot several times, all in the same space, repurposing it for multiple different uses. Always on the lookout for a new opportunity, always keeping yourself open, which I really love. So of all the businesses that you've started then, which one taught you the most? And what was one of the most impactful lessons that you learned that you've continued to carry forward?
I would say that buying the lodge definitely was it was such an education in small business, having an idea. I mean, I went through the paces of doing a business plan and all of that stuff to make sure that, I analyzed this purchase and all of that stuff. And I just had this expectation of what it would be, even though I feel like I'm pretty realistic about what I set my mind to and what it's actually going to entail and all
Sure.
of that stuff. It
Sure.
still ended up being so different, and having to make those adjustments and realizing that really, you can have a great idea about what you want to do, but if people aren't going to purchase your service or your
Hmm.
product, then it doesn't matter how great an idea it is. It's just not one that the market wants. And
Yep.
so I learned that I have to not only do what I want to do that's going to feed my soul, but I have to make sure that it's also what customers and clients want. And that was a big part of what happened with pivoting, going, okay, well, people aren't coming in like even people who said, I would love it if you do this. We'll come in so regularly if you make this restaurant like this. And we were like, cool, because we were doing family style restaurants, something my mom wanted to do, where
Yep.
everybody got the same meal and they passed it around and that whole thing. It's a big deal in some places, not where we were at, and so people were like, no, 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 we want something different. Well, make it different. And I mean, you're going to be just so packed. You won't even know what to do with yourself. And we're like, okay, well, we know that we're not packed right now. So let's see if this adjustment works. And then it was like, yeah, that did nothing. I mean, maybe did a little bit, but not
Not
enough,
enough.
So
So the market
yeah,
research up front and understanding not just what you want, but what do the people want? What do the buyers want?
yeah,
And and
absolutely.
and which makes it really fun because then, like you said, sometimes the buyers think they know what they want, but then they ultimately don't know what they want. That's a lesson that
Hmm.
I don't want to find out after I've spent tens of thousands of dollars, retrofitting or setting up a different kind of business or whatever. So then on the flip side of that, talk about failure, because I'm sure at some point on this entrepreneurial journey, you've screwed the proverbial pooch in some way. I think
Yeah,
it's pretty much a rite of passage for anybody who has ever run any kind of business whatsoever. So talk
yeah.
about a time when you maybe experienced a failure and did it make you better? Did it make you stronger? Did it make you more resilient? Like what did you take away from that?
Yeah. So I would say that probably the failure that struck me the most was that same business that had pivoted. And COVID came along, and the government came in and said, like the state government came in and said, entertainment businesses cannot be open right now. Just just essential services. And then eventually they kind of opened up restaurants, but there was dining outside or takeaway, that kind of thing. But entertainment stuff was still like, nope,
Hmm.
sorry. It's just people need food and they want entertainment, but it's not, no,
They
we're not
don't
going to
need
do that.
entertainment. Yep.
So it was a solid year of the business being shut down and not being able to open up. And then prior to that, we were in an area that's on the way out to like in the middle of the national forest, in the Umpqua National Forest. Well, for 4 years prior, we had had forest fires every single year. And so it took down business and dwindled savings and that sort of thing. And no matter how hard you try to get ahead of that, when you have year after year of things happening that impact you, you have to at some point look at it and go, does this make sense anymore? And it didn't make sense anymore. And it started to feel miserable. And
Oh
so
yeah.
it was like, I think it's time to move on. And luckily, I had actually, because of those seasonal slowdowns that were worse to deal with because of the impact of the high season being slow because of forest fires, I looked into doing something different and found voiceover. And so luckily I was able to go, okay, you know what? I can shut this door and I can feel okay-ish about it. And I can move on to a different business. But I got to say, I still have yet, that was 2021 when I finally said, sorry guys, final shutdown. I have not been back up there, and it's 20 minutes from my house because it hurts my heart. I
Yeah.
poured so much into it, and I sacrificed, and Ron sacrificed, and our kids sacrificed, that it was just like, And it's interesting because there was a lady that came in when we first started, and she's like, I owned this in the 90s, and this is the weirdest thing. I don't want to be here right now. Good luck to you. I'm so sorry. I can't be in here. And I was like, that was strange. Wow.
It almost feels like you need to bring a priest in and have that place
Yeah,
exercised.
no
It
kidding,
just
right?
seems like
Like burnt
it's like
sage
bad voodoo around there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't even begin to imagine how many people, I mean, the number of stories that would be so similar to yours in some way, just COVID just threw everyone for a loop and definitely destroyed a lot of businesses that, at the time, governments, I'm sure, were making the best decisions with the
Oh,
information that they
absolutely.
had. Looking back, who knows? Was the support there? It's hard to say. But yeah, I can definitely see how that would have been devastating. But the fact that you got back up again, right? Like that resilience, because not everybody did, not everybody could.
Yeah.
Right. There comes a point for some people where it's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth the risk. It's not worth the pain. It's not worth the heartbreak. It's not worth the trouble, the expense, whatever. But you got back up again. So did you go to business school or go to school for business? Or are you self-taught through
It's a
mistakes
little
and
of
force, as in like, when you're in the middle of something and you're forced to figure it out? Or
right. Yeah, it's a little of both. I did end up going to college and got my bachelor's in business administration.
okay.
It was weird because I originally was going to school to be a teacher because back way up, I wanted to be an attorney from like the time I was 8, because that's what the cool kids do. And so I thought it was just I was like at 10 years old consuming John Grisham books and like going, yeah, I want to be a badass attorney or something like that.
Yep.
And then I kind of figured out, like, actually, if I'm prosecuting and I know that person's innocent, it's still my job to prosecute. And if I'm defending and that person's guilty, it's still my job to defend. I can't reconcile that.
Yeah.
And then also I had a baby when I was 18. So that was like, I cannot work 80, 90-hour work weeks that you have to put in. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I love teaching people stuff. So I told my mom at that time, I was like, I think I'm going to go to school and be a teacher. And she's like, that's fabulous. It's a noble way to starve, sweetie, but you go do that,
So encouraging.
I know. Well, she was very realistic that way. Like she was super encouraging, and she's like, if that's what you want to do, I support you 100%, but please be realistic and understand.
It's a noble way to starve.
Yes.
Dang. That's hardcore.
Yeah. Well, she was a speech pathologist in the school system. And so even though she was making maybe more than a teacher, like a standard teacher, because she had a specialized profession, it was still not that much more.
Yep.
And so she was just trying to kind of prepare me for, like, you're going to get into some debt and you're going to do some work, and then you're going to make probably less than a lot of people that don't work in the school system. And if you're okay with that, that's fine, but just realize that's what you're going to be dealing with. And so, so I was, like I said, I was like 18 and I had a kid. And so first term, and I was like in the classroom at the high school I had just graduated from the prior year with people who were my peers. That did not go so well with the student teaching. They were looking at me like, who are you to tell me what to do?
Right. And
I was like, oh yeah, I'm not cut out for this classroom teaching like this. And so I was like, okay, and then I had to take a break to have a baby. And then when I moved, I ended up in Spokane and I went to community college. I took a business 101 class, and the teacher just made it so interesting. Right. That it was just like, this is so fascinating. Oh my gosh. And then like one of the kids in the class, I mean, an adult, but we were all young, and he was talking about how he had invested like some money he had saved up, and he worked at a grocery store. And so he was able to like talk to the guys who delivered their beverages, and he bought Coke stock, and it went for a 3-for-1 split. So his $10,000 became $30,000. And I was like, wow. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it just was just super fascinating. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to try that. And so I ended up switching my major to business. And then I finished the community college credits, transferred to the business school, at the college, the university, and finished up there and focused on marketing as my tract. And then also did like a minor in communication, because I also find interpersonal communication fascinating, as well as business communication, negotiation, conflict, and stuff like that. And oh gosh, I learned so much, but I learned a lot when I got out that wasn't taught in the classroom. And
experience, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's just nothing that beats experience. Nothing, not even education, because your education may not prepare you for what you actually experience.
So let's build on that. Two-part question. Thinking back to the early days of your voiceover business, put aside, performance coaching, demos, all of that sort of stuff. We're talking the business side of business.
Sure. Yeah.
From the experiences that you had from the businesses that you had previously run, what's one lesson that you learned that you brought with you that helped you get a head start in voiceover? And then I would say that the second part is, what's a voiceover lesson that you had to learn, a business lesson that you had to learn where you wish you had known this beforehand?
Yeah. So I would say the thing that I brought with me that probably was the most helpful was just the idea that even though you're doing something creative and you're doing this voiceover work, it's your business, and you need to treat it like a business from the beginning, and set it up that way to set yourself up for success, because it's a lot tougher to retrofit everything.
Right.
Especially when you get busy, because if you happen to be the flavor of the week right off the bat, then you're going to just be like, okay, I'm just going to do all this work. And then all of a sudden you have poor business practices that actually end up hurting you in the long run, but you don't feel them until it's too late.
Right.
And so I think that was probably the biggest thing, is like, okay, I have to know that even though this is really fun and creative, I have to make sure that the business bones are there, and that I am running this thing like if I were working for somebody else. I got to put in the time that I would put in at a 9 to 5 or whatever, maybe not on those hours, but I have to treat it like that to make sure that it works. Let's see here. And then something in voiceover that I learned.
Something that you wish you had known starting.
Oh, well, I wish I would have known more about where to learn that stuff, so because the actual, I made some mistakes when I started. I started out in audiobook narration on ACX, and it wasn't until I was, I don't know, 20 books deep, and I realized that, oh, there are these things called code farmers, and these books that seem like they're poorly translated are probably stolen, and I can't get them off of my profile unless they get removed. Dang. And I didn't know that. And so I wish, like in that case, I wish I would have found something like Narrator's Roadmap from the beginning, because that's where I ended up eventually learning. It wasn't until I got a couple of books where I'm like, God, these are really poorly translated. What is the deal? And then I started looking it up, and that's when I discovered it. And then, kind of the same thing with just learning where I can go to learn what I need to learn about sort of the business of voiceover, but then the performance coaching and stuff like that. I mean, I myself ended up going to finding Gravy for the Brain through, like some sponsored ad that was on Facebook or whatever. So I was able to actually plug into J. Michael and, all of the people that teach there. So I got that good education, but I am probably maybe the minority, because it seems like a lot of folks are actually plugging into stuff unless they just happen upon Gravy for the Brain or GVAA or like your teachings or anything. Like they go to the places that don't serve them.
Yeah, there is a lot
So,
of that. I'm guessing that the resilience factor was something too, right? I mean, if you've had
mhm.
struggles in business in the past and you've been able to push through that, overcome that, maintain your sanity in the midst of all of that, when you get started in voiceover, I mean, there's a good deal of resilience that is required in this business to get yourself started. When you recognize how many auditions you're going to actually submit before you actually
Mhm.
get a booking, the amount of rejection that exists in the space and all of that, having that resilience from those other businesses probably served you well, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That and also knowing how to market yourself in other ways. I talked to somebody yesterday that said they were facing 93 auditions they had to get out on pay to plays. And I was just like, oh,
No,
that
thank
sounds
you.
horrible.
Yep,
That
that doesn't
sounds
sound fun at all.
no, I mean, if you have a lot of auditions that you need to do because, your agents are getting them to you or your rosters are getting them to you, great. Okay, cool, you're busy. But the grind of pay to play, like I started
Yep.
there too.
Yep.
I am glad that I learned other techniques that I could then transfer over to voiceover and then expand upon them
Yeah.
to make them specific to voiceover because I was able to make that choice to say I'm not going to grind like that anymore. And honestly, you inspired me because you talked about doing that same thing where you're like this isn't serving me anymore, so I'll go down to these free accounts, but I'm not going to do this grind anymore. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Oh my gosh, I think I broke out in hives just thinking about the idea of having 93 auditions to submit in one day.
Yeah, it's just so much. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it if that's what somebody
No,
wants to
if you can
do, but
do
if
it.
it's not serving you
Yeah.
and you're not loving it anymore, it's think about something different.
So you touched on this. Let's go back to it a little bit. You talked a little bit about systems and processes and
Mhm.
that part of that being what you carried over from running businesses in the past. So what are some of the must-have apps, tools, software, subscriptions, whatever it is that you're using, loving, relying on to keep you on task, keeping your business running smoothly?
Surprisingly, it's pretty low tech considering, but my phone calendar, which is also, my Google Calendar,
Yep.
is huge. I put things on it for personal, for business. I color code things so that I can see at a glance,
Yep.
like if my day is mostly helping clients, if it's mostly working in my business, or I even, have the and the color coding is like I see the purple because it's my personal stuff, and the purple stuff that's listed for all day could say like your Discover card is due today or in 2 days, so that I don't miss that because
Yep.
money in voiceover is never consistently there, right? Like it's just always, so you can't necessarily, there's some things that you can set up on auto pay and there's some things that you're like, maybe I won't do
Yep.
that. So I have to have a way to remind myself. So that calendar is super helpful. And I set my stuff to give me a notification 1 day before, 1 hour before, and 10 minutes before, so that it can be like, hey, you've got this coming tomorrow, so I can plan for it. And hey, in 10 minutes from now, you should be doing this. And then it's like, oh yeah, let me get to a good stopping point, or the 1 hour, let me get to a good stopping point and I'll do that. And 10
Yep.
minutes, like, hey, dummy, get it done, you know?
I'm all for
So,
the color coded calendar. I have the same
oh
thing.
man,
I've got,
it's so helpful.
yeah,
It's
I
so
got so many
helpful.
different things, and my schedule, my personal schedule, my work schedule, my wife's schedule, my kids' schedule,
Hmm.
family as a whole, like, and I can look at and just tell by the colors. Okay, this
Yeah.
is. So I think that's a really good idea. Are you using
Yeah.
anything else? Anything else
Uh,
that you've discovered that's like, oh man, how did I do this before that?
the it's another simple thing. It's the Google Drive. Like I
Yep.
blocked the Google Drive for so long and was just like, I don't want to do this. It's pared down versions of Word but not everybody has Word, and not everybody has the Microsoft Suite, even though it's like more robust. and not everybody has it. And the other thing too that would happen is if you had to share a document or a sheet or something like that with somebody, it'd be like, well, do you have the most current version, or is that version that I sent you like 3 days ago? Because I've updated it since then, but I don't remember if by doing the drive and having people be able to access different folders with you and having those be living, breathing documents, then it makes it a whole lot easier, and
Yep.
it's a less room for error. And then, I mean, I even have a Google Doc that I call Jess's brain dump for all of the random pieces of backs of envelopes and little
Yep.
notepads and sticky
Right.
notes that were everywhere. And I was just like, oh gosh, this is ridiculous. Okay, I have got to do something. And then I learned about how to put a table of contents in a Google Doc so that you didn't have to scroll to try to find something. You could just
Okay.
click on the table of contents. Oh, that's been so helpful.
That
I
sounds
use it for
convenient.
everything now.
I have paid for Apple iCloud for years, but for whatever reason, I would never do where your computer documents just existed in the cloud, like they didn't actually store locally on your computer. For whatever reason,
Uh-huh.
I was always opposed to that.
Yep.
And stupidly, I would pay for a third-party service to give me more cloud storage so that I could put voiceover files and stuff like that. That way, I'm at VO Atlanta and one of my clients is like, hey, can you send me this file? I would have it in this third-party service. And so I finally, when I got my new Mac Studio this year, I was like, I'm just going to try this whole, put it all in the iCloud and see how it works. And oh my gosh, it's been absolutely amazing to have access to all of my files anytime, anywhere, whatever I need.
Yep.
Client hits me up when I'm on the road somewhere. I can just jump in, grab it, send them what they want, sharing documents back and forth, the whole entire thing. That was definitely something. I don't know why I fought that for so long. It was
I don't know.
really,
I did the same thing where I'm like, here, bang head here, because it was so silly for me to just bucket for so long.
yep. So I know something that you have done in the past, which was something that had never even occurred to me that you could do, and that was apply for grants.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really interesting concept that I am guessing the vast majority of voice actors fall into the same boat that I am, which is what? There's grants? You can apply for grants? What are you talking about, grants?
Right.
Talk to us about grants.
Yeah. Well, I was in the same boat. Like when you think about grants, you think about them being accessible to nonprofits.
Sure.
And so, I mean, at least that's where I was until I started to kind of learn more about them. And I had worked on helping get information for grants and help write some little paragraphs and stuff with a nonprofit that I had worked with. But I had never thought about it for myself, and I was able to plug into, so like it's like, so there's the Small Business Administration that has like the small business development centers.
Okay.
And there are these other ones that are more regional. And so
Okay.
instead of it being a federal organization, and the one that's in this area is called CCD, for Coos, Curry, Douglas, the counties that it serves. And I got hooked in with them. It's a business development thing as well. And really, the only reason I ended up transferring over from the SBA for that was because the person that I was working with over there moved to this other organization, and I was like, I had no idea that existed. And so then I ended up starting to get emails from them about different things. And one of the things that came into one of the emails that I had received had said, it was during COVID, and it was saying that there was a grant that was available to artists, whether they were visual artists, whether they were, like what we do,
Yep.
sound.
Sure.
It was open to creatives of all types.
Okay.
And I was like, well, will I qualify for that? Because does that fall into that? And so I contacted CCD, Kim Todd. Oh gosh, she's so amazing. I'll have to let her know that we're going to shout out. But anyway, she told me about, yeah, you should definitely apply for this grant, because it was for businesses who were impacted by COVID. And she was saying, you were working in voiceover when COVID started. And she asked me if I was impacted. And I said, well, yeah, I went from being able to narrate audiobooks like crazy to all of a sudden there were so many narrators that it was harder for me to land the role, the job as the narrator.
Yep.
And she's like, perfect. Okay, so you're impacted. And so I just had to really fill out a bunch of paperwork, which is, and then provide some documentation so that they could see the impact that it had on my finances. And it's just a matter of making sure that your narrative really tells your like what's going on. And I was awarded, there were a couple of them. One was that impact grant. I was awarded $10,000
That's amazing.
to help my business,
Yep.
just for the asking and the filling out of a lot of paperwork. And then I ended up, there was another one that was offered, that was a $2,500 to be able to help further your business with training or something like that. And I had applied for that one, and they gave me that one for $2,500. And then maybe a few months later, they were like, hey, we got some more funding, so we're actually going to give you another $2,500. Here you go. So in a few months, my business had $15,000 that was free money, just for saying, let me fill out some paperwork, let me provide you some documentation, and let me agree to let you tell people I won this. And if you need a testimonial, I'll give it to you. Like, very low,
Were there guidelines for, so now you got $15,000 in your business. Do you have to provide an accounting of, I need this, I'm going to take this money so I can spend it on this, or once I have the money, I will purchase this? Or is it just, here's a check, go help your business?
It was one of those situations where you had to tell them what you were going to use it for ahead of time when you applied. And I had said, like with the big one, I was like, well, I actually need some demos so that I can expand into other areas. And so I would like to use this to get some coaching to become demo ready for these different genres, and then to be able to make these demos, which will be my calling card to the people that I'm marketing to. So I said that. And then I also said that I would also use it to help with some of the overhead that I had, because I had to pay monthly fees for subscriptions and things like that. And that was enough for them. And that's exactly what I did with it.
So I know this answer is going to be a little bit broad, but
sure,
generally speaking, if somebody was interested in trying to find out if there was a grant that they could get access to, are we looking at through our Chamber of Commerce? Are we looking through the Small Business Administration? Are we looking through municipal government? Like, where would be a couple of places that you might be able to go and see if there's something that's even available or something that you could apply to?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of all of those, actually. Yeah. So getting involved, and it's just smart to get involved with these organizations anyway. I didn't at first, and I got to see other people surpass me, where I was like, I got started before you did in other business. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to make that mistake twice. You get involved with Small Business Development Center. You get involved with the what is the Business Development Center. Darn it. You get involved with them, and then you not only do you have access to information where you can take some classes that are either free or inexpensive about running your business, but you get brought into this fold. And especially voice actors, oh my gosh, we're like unicorns out there, right? Like, how many people, when you go to your local networking event, are like, oh, you do that? Well, oh, what have I heard you in? Did you take any training? Because if you didn't, then probably nothing. But that it's so rare in the wild, I guess, that you getting into the fold becomes a place for you to like market without even trying. If they need voiceover work for you on a video or something like that they're doing, they'll be like, oh, we have somebody right here who can do it. Let me call them, and then of course you have access to, if they have grants come up, you're in their fold, so that they'll be like, oh, the following people will probably qualify for this. Let me email this out to them.
And not to mention the potential added value of just the relationships, potential mentorships, right? Most people that are in this business are not business minded. We're creatives by our very nature. And so to be in a place where you're connected with a bunch of other small business owners who are having some of the same struggles, or have had some of the same struggles that you've had from a business standpoint, having those resources of being able to call somebody up and say, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, do you what do I do with this, or whatever. So there's there's that added benefit as well. But hey, I would be all about taking some free money if my government wants to give it to me, since they're basically just giving me my money back anyway.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. Another place too, something that is I ended up with it somehow else, but Verizon has a $10,000 grant that they give away every year. And it's not just for nonprofits. They require you to do a little bit of education, but they offer that education for free. You have to take so many of their modules, like workshops.
sure.
And then it unlocks the application for you to be able to apply. So that's something too. And it's Verizon, you
How
know.
hard are the applications to fill out? Like, is it something that you were able to do on your own, or did you have to get some help with it, or?
I had a little bit of help on the one of them, because it wasn't so much the application, the narrative parts, I was able to figure out, okay, it's asking me this question and let me put this in here and I have this many words, and there was that kind of expectation. But then there would sometimes be a question on there where it would ask something about the business, and I was like, well, does this mean this or does it mean that? And so I might reach out, and that's the beauty of like CCD or the SBA or any of those. They a lot of times that's the kind of service they offer. Even if you find a grant that they're not offering, they are there to help counsel you on things like that, to be able to say, okay, you need to provide this information.
I wonder how much of this money goes unawarded just because people look at the application process, feel overwhelmed or intimidated by it, and just say, forget it. It's not even worth it. And so
Right.
the fact that you sat down, persevered through it, got it done, got a little bit of help when you needed it. And I mean, look, $15,000 waiting on the other side. That's a few demos. That's some good coaching. That's a studio
Mhm.
upgrade if you needed it. Like that,
Yep.
that can go a long way to having a very meaningful impact in your business.
Yeah. And it really did. It changed things. It made it so that I could get those other demos. I did need an equipment upgrade because I had my starter Amazon equipment because I didn't know any better,
Right. Yep.
and so I had to upgrade that. At that point I was in the RV, and so I got a tri booth so that I had something that was easy to
Yep.
to take up and take down if I was going to move, but then also it fit in the small footprint of the
Man, I
little
love that thing.
bunk room. I know, it's so great. It's so great. It actually goes to retreats now too. Like for Dublin, James C was saying, "Hey, you gonna bring the tri booth this time?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So the tri booth will be making its way over to Dublin. It went to Holland too.
That's awesome. Oh
Yeah.
man, it works so great for that.
Yeah.
So I know that you're an avid reader. I
Mhm.
am an avid reader. I have one shelf on my bookcase that is dedicated to the stack of books that I still haven't got through yet. My wife made the mistake of introducing me to bookoutlet.ca.
I saw
I believe that
that.
there's a US version as well. I believe there's a bookoutlet.com. But bookoutlet.ca, I'm literally buying books. Now they might be a year or two old, but
Yeah.
I'm buying these books that are like $30 or $40 retail books for like $10. And
Yeah, that's
and
nice
I've done
though.
a lot of shopping at Book Outlet this year. And I got about another $200 worth of books sitting in my cart right now. What am I missing? What are some of the ones that you've read recently that you've really enjoyed? Or is there one where, if you could gift this to, this is the book that I would buy to gift to voice actors who are starting a business, where I think the information in this would help them from a business standpoint?
Um, you know, so I actually listen to audiobooks a lot too, because I can do that while, in the car or something like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
The one actually Ron told me about it is Rich Dad Poor Dad
Yep.
by Robert Kiyosaki.
Read that one.
That is so good. And he's got a whole series now. I have actually a bunch of them sitting in my library waiting to listen to on Audible. But the ideas that he has that are so seemingly simple,
Yep.
to say, do you want to punch a clock and, build somebody else's business, or do you want to take your time and invest it in your own business? And just the way to think about what's actually an asset and what's not, and
Yep.
that kind of thing. um Dave Ramsey,
Yep.
I did his, like, I read his book years and
Total Money
years ago.
Makeover.
Yes, I read his book years and years ago, and it still applies. I mean, the idea of the debt snowball, the idea that is so different from other people when Dave Ramsey says, your house is not an asset. I don't care. It's a liability if you have a mortgage on it, which is so different than what we've
Yeah.
been taught. So, and the things that he talks about doing, he'll say these are so simple, and it works personally and professionally.
Sure.
Making sure that you have your pots of money set aside and all that, and keeping your finances different. So those are a couple that I've read or listened to, and they're really great for business and for life. I am currently listening to, let me look here. It's called Mind Management, Not Time Management.
Ooh,
And
that's a good title.
yeah, it's by, I'm going to mispronounce this probably, but David Kadavi.
Mind management. I'm literally writing this down right now, not time management. Okay.
Yeah. So somebody else posted it on Facebook, and I don't even know which group it was in, but they said that they had listened to it and it was a game changer. And even though I absolutely hate that phrase, I was like, okay, I get it. So it's a game changer. Okay. So I'm like, okay, this is good. Especially like I am ADD and I have made it work for me. So my thought is I kind of read the description of the book, and the idea that this guy has is that he used to do all these time management things, and I do too. And I even teach people how to do time management things. But this concept was like, maybe forget some of the time management stuff that you already learned and think about how your mind is working, and then adjust your process and when you do things to match what you're noticing is successful. And he was talking about it in his first chapter about how he was writing this book, and he had gone from a blogger to like an author because a company reached out and said, we'll give you an advance if you'll write this book and whatever. And he was like, okay, great. And he was just continued to sit at the computer because he would block time and do all of the things that you're supposed to do. And then it would just be like nothing
there.
And then
Crickets.
he would find there were times where it would just flow out of him, but then he was on a time constraint. And so he was like, gotta stop, and he was just like, I gotta figure this out. And he ended up going to another country every winter and found just going, all of my blog posts that are really good and having a lot of engagement happened when I was here.
Yep.
Hang on, let me rethink this. So anyway, I'm not too far into it yet. I'm only into the second chapter. The chapters are fairly long. But so far it's like, okay.
I like the sounds of that one.
Yeah.
So I'm a little upset.
Uh-oh.
Not gonna lie. I just found out that you had a book and you didn't even tell me. Hurt my feelings.
I'm sorry.
So rude. Like seriously, how do you not tell me?
I'm sorry. I should have. I actually thought about like, I'm gonna send one to him and say, thank you. You helped inspire this. But like, I was like, but would that be cheesy?
I was like, what the heck? So I discovered this when I was researching for the interview, and I'm like, how do I not know that she has a book? How did she not tell me that she has a book? So tell us about the book. Tell us about the Bite-Sized Business Builder.
Yeah,
I'm assuming that it's delicious finger foods and
yeah, it looks like this. Yeah, so it's actually kind of a workbook.
Okay.
And what I got to thinking about was that I talk to people who have struggle with business, and I talk to them, and it seems like a lot of the concepts that we end up talking about, or the ideas that we have, when we brainstorm, seem fairly simple to me, but I'm a business geek. So maybe that's why.
Yep.
That's not as simple to everyone else. But what I found is that a lot of people are saying, well, I mean, a lot in reference to like who I talk to, but the people that I talk to are saying, yeah, okay, I can learn this stuff and then I can take notes, but then I'm like, I get back home and I'm like, or they get done with the session or whatever. And then they're really good right after the session. But if they have to walk away from it and come back to it, they're like, it falls apart.
Yep.
And so I was thinking about, I wanted to try to figure out kind of a simple way for folks to be able to not feel so overwhelmed by business. It just, people get into that information overload, that overwhelm, and then they just kind of lock up and they just stop. And so the idea that I kind of had was, well, I started doing bite-sized business tips, and I actually need to get back to them.
We just created accountability just like that. Just
Yep,
by
yep.
virtue of having you on the show, we just created accountability. So watch for new
Right,
business tips
right.
coming
I
soon.
know. I need to record some more videos. It's just like I just have to get better at video editing because that's probably the hardest part where I don't edit my videos well enough to be able to actually like string something together and not have it look stupid. So I am actually that on my little phone and going, okay, all right, so blah 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 blah. Oh, stop, re-record, so it's a very laborious process. So anyway, but the bite-sized business tips came to me as some way to have kind of quick engaging content to also establish myself in the industry so
Mhm.
people would trust me.
Yep.
There's so much distrust and there's good reason. There's plenty of
Sure.
people out there.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had kind of heard people like, oh man, that's brilliant. I love it. I love that quick tip. I love that idea of doing something simple and doing something is better than doing nothing.
Yep.
And so from that, I was like, let me see if I can kind of turn this into something more. And I decided I wanted to kind of test out working with a group of people before I put my shingle out to say, I can help you with this.
Yep.
And I also didn't want to be like, I'm Marc Scott 2.0. I didn't want to do that because there is no one like the original. So I was like, okay, well, a lot of this business information, I mean, we all kind of learn the same stuff, but
Yep.
sometimes the way that one person presents it speaks to you differently
Sure.
than the way another person does. And so I was kind of going for those folks that are like, I need it to be real simple. Like, can you
Yep.
red Crayola it for me? And so that's what I ended up doing. And my thought was, in school, when we need to learn something, they teach us about it. And then we do some practice in school on worksheets or on notebook paper.
Yep.
And then we get homework. And those homework are usually like these little worksheets that we then have to apply that concept to that worksheet. And then we come back and we have something. And so that's kind of what I did is I started working with a couple of test groups to see how it went. And every month we meet up and I had a little packet of like, okay, this is the concept that we're going to work on. And here's kind of a little bit about it. And then here's some worksheets that you can do to help you think through this process.
Nice.
And then it ended up coming together and I realized it was like quite a bit of work. And I think it was maybe Lynn Norris Lynn Norris. And then some of the people in my groups were like, you have a book there, right? And I was like, but do I? And so
That's what happens when we're too close to our own stuff. We can't see what's right in front of us. So it's good that we've got people on the outside looking in that can say, actually, this is what you have and you don't even notice it.
Yeah. So that's what ended up happening. And I wanted to make it like a little bit fun too, coming up with silly names for things. Like there's a chapter that's called relationship goals. And that's just about, getting your clients and keeping them by having a good relationship with them. Or like there's a chapter that's kind of on like making sure that your bookkeeping and your finances are in order. Like I'm not an accountant, but let me tell you a couple things about how you can get your stuff ready for one, or if you're doing it yourself. And I called it creative accounting, which is typically a bad term.
So how do I put my money offshore, Jessica?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I'll talk to an accountant. But
so where do we go to find it?
It's actually available on my website. So if you go to jessica.com/bitesizebusinessbuilder, I have it available there. And there's a place where you can purchase the book. I don't have an ebook version available yet because it's a whole lot. Actually, Ron spent a lot of time going through and helping me put the little text boxes in to be able to let people be able to fill out an electronic version of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, God. So many boxes. Poor guy. But I still have to figure out how to kind of like lock it down so it's able to be uploaded and still usable and stuff. So yeah, I have it available as something that you can order, and then I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And there's a PDF companion that you can purchase if you want to. So if you want to have the extra forms because you mess up or you want to be able to have, 5 different goals in addition to the 5 that I give you papers for, forms for, then you can make more copies. So there's both of those. You can buy the workbook and then you can get the companion PDF so that you can make your own copies of the forms if you want extras.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll put a link to that in the show notes so that everybody can go and check that out.
Yeah.
Jessica, this has been great. I love
Thank you.
talking about business. I could talk to you all day about business. I still think there's something to the rage room. I still think there's an opportunity to, how do we set up a temporary rage room experience at VO Atlanta? Let's talk to JMC about and Anna about
that would be, it would depend on the insurance company and the hotel. And
if we could put it inside of like an outdoor space that's like with inflatable walls, or I don't know, there's got to be, how do we do that? How do we unleash that rage? Because I know there's a lot of voice actors with a lot of rage. If we could get some old computers and we could put AI pictures on the screens.
Yeah. You could just write, you could write it on there in those like grease pencils or something. Yeah.
There's a lot of rage that could be unleashed, and a lot of good therapy that could happen with that. So we'll have to look into that. But I'm so grateful to you for coming on and sharing from your experience and your wisdom. And I know that this book will certainly be a help for a lot of people as well, because sometimes that is the biggest thing, right? I've come home with information overload. I've come home with tons of notes. Now I have everything that I need except for a 1, 2, 3 steps to follow to execute. And it sounds like that's the missing link, that's where the book fills in. So thank you for putting that resource together as well. Appreciate you, Jessica.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.